want to say the words electricity and increase and inflation because they're all so negative and doom and gloom, but it is our reality at the moment. So we need something to uplift us, lift our spirits. And what better way to do that than to get into a car that you almost certainly could never afford? Probably why I've chosen this career, because for the next 2 days, I get to forget all my troubles and enjoy the luxurious BMW i7. Sheesh, talk about opulence and luxury. This cabin is on another level. Now, it does take on the Mercedes-Benz EQS, which I managed to spend just a little bit of time in. So it really does have to be right up there in terms of luxury. And it is. It's almost a bit too much. It's like over the top. But there are a few futuristic things that I think people are either going to love or they're going to hate. There are buttons to open the door, much like the BMW iX, which took me about 2 hours to figure out, I have to tell you. So I was stuck in that car. But if you were ever to be stuck in a car, an electric BMW is probably what is the best bet. Now, some people are going to love this or they're going to hate it because it's much like an electric tailgate. So if you push it, it has like a vroot, vroot thing going on. There are 2 buttons. I'm going to show you this one. That opens. You push it. But then there's this other button here which opens all 4 doors automatically, which does look very impressive. I just don't know how much that's going to be utilized. Then there are invisible air vents. Now, I thought I would hate them because I like to angle my air vents directly in my face. But because the line is so long, you've got these little rubber parts here, and they actually direct the airflow very well. So I was actually more impressed with that than I thought I was going to be. And I have to say that I love all the crystal elements. Who doesn't love a bit of crystal? But the one thing I'm very torn on is this cashmere wool that is on these seats. Again, love it or hate it. It's going to give you a bit of a scratchy grill feeling, but you could just match it with a lovely cashmere scarf. Well, I could get very used to this. Remember when I used the term limousine? This is kind of what I meant. It's like a full-blown theater in here. These seats recline, but just wait for it. Da, da, da. Look at the screen. Back where I belong, which is the driver's seat. So we've got 2 electric motors, one in the front, one at the rear, both powered by a rather massive 101 kilowatt hour battery. That means you're getting 400 kilowatts of power and 745 newton meters of torque. Now, acceleration isn't savage, right? But that's not to mean it's slow. In fact, you just have to tap your foot to pass the mere mortals with a massive grin on your face. But I think it's just more a relaxing acceleration, a more comfortable drive overall. The range you're looking at is between 591 and about 625 kilometers. And if it's sort of some roar of the engine that you're missing, no need to fear because Hans Zimmer has you covered because he's developed a sound for you. So I'm going to pop this into sport mode and then you can have a listen for yourself. Oh, I sounded quite similar. I'm not sure about it, but each to their own. If you enjoy Star Wars and Star Trek, I suppose you might love it. I'm not one of those people. What BMW has managed to achieve is to produce something that makes us all go, wow. And as an esteemed journalist with many years under my belt, not too many, be careful what you're thinking, but it's quite refreshing to get behind the wheel of something that leaves such an impression. Now, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to go back to my real life.
Welcome back to Ignition GT. Doors that open and close automatically and an IMAX-sized rear screen are all very well, but they do not make a luxury car. Has BMW successfully reimagined the Executive Express, and have they moved the goalpost forward enough for them to give them an edge over rivals like the Mercedes-Benz S-Class? Well, gentlemen, what do you think? It's been an age-old thing when it comes to S-Class, 7 Series. First impressions. Arthur, we'll start with you. It's your first time on the show, so we'll let you do the things.
Well, then I'm allowed to share some history with you.
Sure.
About 20 to 25 years of trying cars, one of the things I always look at, because I look at the tech, which is usually in the front, is going into the back to see how much have they given the rear passengers, the rear seat passengers. And mostly over the years, it's nothing, or very little, maybe aircon controls in the back. That started changing recently, but my car of the year last year, from that point of view, in fact from a tech point of view, was the new Range Rover, precisely because of the extent of control they put into the rear seat passengers. So that meant that when I got into the BMW, into the back of the BMW i7, they call it an executive lounge, and it really is that experience. But more than just the electronic controls of the seats, you have what's practically a smartphone screen in the door handle for each of the rear passengers. And the extent of controls built into that was just staggering. Too much, actually, I'll be very honest with you. But from controlling your IMAX-sized screen coming out of the seating, to being able to recline your seat completely and the seat in front of you, pushing it forward completely electronically, and then getting a massage in the seat. Almost too much, but what an experience.
I can only imagine, because having experienced different variants of the BMW 7 Series and how they just keep on leveling up more and more, I think this has probably been the biggest technological jump from the previous model to this model. And like you say, the back seat is actually where all the magic happens, as they say, especially when it comes to this type of vehicle. Bernie, I'm sure you felt the same way when you walked into that vehicle, or rather when you sat inside the executive lounge. How was that experience?
You mentioned in your intro also, has BMW moved the goalposts significantly enough to set the 7 Series apart? And for me, just looking at the back, and of course we must remember that many BMW 7 Series owners, as Merc S-Class owners, will be driven in these cars. So what happens in the back is important. And for me, BMW certainly has done that. Luxury has moved on from being walnut veneer and leather seats and that kind of thing. It's par for the course. So the new direction is, or new luxury direction rather, is what tech do you get? What creature comforts do you get that add to your experience of not just of the car but of your life? Continuing what you would normally do in your office, at home, in your vehicle while traveling. It's not just a mode of transport. So the back seat for me has, or the rear of the car, not just the seat itself, although they are lovely. For me, that has really pushed the BMW forward. So it's a big thumbs up from me, definitely.
But you also mentioned that at the same time, it could actually be quite overwhelming for the consumer. So if you look at certain technological things that are in the new 7 Series, what do you think are the ones that are going to really make the consumer say, this is the one that I want, this is the thing that's going to really stand out for me? Is that big cinema IMAX thing really something that's going to be used, or is it more gimmicky, would you say? What do you think, Arthur?
The issue for me is not too much tech, but how they've thought through the tech. So, for example, if you are lying far back and you're watching a movie, your seatbelt is not going to be fixed properly. So it's not particularly safe. And that's something that they've got to think through a little more. And the other issue is when you use the full extent of the luxury and comfort, and the seat in front of you, in other words, the front passenger seat is fully pushed forward and your seat is fully pushed back, and you basically have a full bed that you're lying on, the driver cannot actually see the side mirror on the passenger side.
Yes.
When I was driving, I experienced that because I chauffeured my co-driver. And then the other issue there is if you're watching movies, then it automatically brings up these screens that darken the side and rear windscreens. Okay. So the driver again cannot see the
back.
road in the rearview mirror. And they're not major issues, but they issues that have to be thought through a little more.
You spoke about as you were driving the vehicle. Now, as much as people are going to be driven, they still need to drive this vehicle. Now, looking at the engines that are on offer, do you think that the 3-litre power plant is enough to shuttle around that big mass, or are we going to miss that old school 4-litre biturbo V8 that you used to get in the previous iterations of the car?
Look, it's such a difficult one because you want that oomph of a V8, and you don't get it in this car. You get a lot of power, you get a lot of nimbleness. It doesn't feel large. It is very large, make no mistake. So when you're on a narrow winding road, like we were sometimes during the launch drive, you are aware of the size of the car. But normally on takeoff and cornering, you don't really feel that. Of course, my pick of the bunch is the i7, simply because power is there instantaneously. It does feel a lot quicker. It does feel a lot tighter around bends the suspension is the same, but it's a heavier car as well, but it feels lighter somehow because of the additional power and the additional torque that's available from the word go.
Interesting. Interesting that, we live in a day now where the preference is actually the electric version. But I mean, who's going to say no to 400 kilowatts at the end of the day?